if we listened to these people when they had promised us that Roe wasn't in danger, we wouldn't be in a country right now that's just had 50 years of precedent and a woman's right to her own bodily autonomy stripped away.
Well, I'll say just for my own part, I have never suggested Roe is not in danger. I have always been very hopeful that Roe would be overruled.
What's happening, everybody? Michael Knowles recently debated soy boy beta cuck Brian Tyler Cohen on Alex Michelson's show, The Issue Is. Michael Knowles and Brian Tyler Cohen debate the issue of abortion. Guess which side Brian Tyler Cohen is on. Anyway, let's watch Michael Knowles make short work of progressive baby hater Brian Tyler Cohen. Let's go.
Let me, if I could just say one thing to that, and not on the legalese of it, but it is always funny how the same people who warned that Roe was not in danger are now warning that same-sex marriage is not in danger, contraception is not in danger, interstate travel are not in danger. If we listen to these people, when they had promised us that Roe wasn't in danger, we wouldn't be in a country right now that's just had 50 years of precedent and a woman's right to her own bodily autonomy stripped away.
Well, I'll say just for my own part, I have never suggested Roe is not in danger. I have always been very hopeful that Roe would be overruled because you're discussing bodily autonomy. I'm all for the bodily rights of babies in the womb. And after the Dobbs decision, of course, that didn't even protect the rights of babies in the womb. It simply returned the issue to the states where it had always been until this ridiculous decision in 1973, which is no more.
All right.
I mean, we're looking at more than 50 years of precedent. And you mentioned some of these cases: Griswold in 65, Eisenstadt in 72, Roe in 73, and Casey in 1992. All of that is precedent upon precedent. And claiming that the court is only correct now that it's following your specific political and or religious views shows that you're just interested in cherry picking decisions that comport with those views.
Brian, are you familiar with the Dred Scott decision?
Yes.
The Dred Scott decision, which said that black people can never be American citizens, that was also Supreme Court precedent, right? Would you say that the court was right to overturn the Dred Scott decision?
This is the first time that the court has reversed a decision to take away rights, and it has stripped that right from half of the population. And the practical impact of that is that, in real life now, we're looking at a 10-year-old in Ohio who would have been forced to give birth to her rapist baby. We're looking at incest victims potentially giving birth to their own brothers or sisters. We're looking at doctors being jailed. We're looking at police questioning people about miscarriages. I mean, that is a police state. Michael, is that small government? Is that limited government? Because to me, it looks like
and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it.
That is limited, yeah.
It looks like Christo-fascist religious extremism. Christo-fascist religious extremism.
The case you're referring to in Ohio, Brian, by the way, the 10-year-old who was reportedly raped, she actually, by the Ohio law, would not have been prevented from getting an abortion in Ohio, regardless of what you think about pro-life or pro-abortion. That she may have gone to Indiana, but she wouldn't have needed to. But furthermore, when you talk about rape and incest and all of that, that accounts for far less than 1% of all abortions. Statistically, 100% of abortions are elective abortions. I think those should be gotten rid of. And I think the Dred Scott analogy is important here, because the Dred Scott decision from the court said that black people are not really people and they can't be American citizens. And the Roe v. Wade decision from the court said that babies are not really people and their existence and their value depends simply on whether they're desired or not by their parents. And both of them are horrific, and it's very good that both were overturned.
So if it's only just a small percentage rape and incest, that 1%, do you agree with an exemption for rape and incest then?
Well, it's also kind of curious that people make these two distinctions between rape and incest. I don't know of a whole lot of consensual incest, so we're really just talking about exceptions for the case of rape. And the liberals always try to argue from the absolute most hard cases. But the argument for pro-life is that a person is a person, no matter how small. And also, an abortion does not fix anything. Abortion will not get rid of a rape. Abortion will not undo any sort of crime. Abortion does not even make any lifelong take away any lifelong responsibilities or anything like that. There is such a thing as adoption. You can deal with very difficult, horrible circumstances in a way that will not increase trauma to people, as abortion does, and will not lead them to commit horrific actions and to end a human life.
We're running out of time, Brian. Last word to you.
I would just say to that, I have two things to say to that. One, it doesn't matter what your opinion on this is, because this is not your body. It's not your choice. You're not the one who is able.
Sorry, the second I heard it's not your body, your choice, I had to take a break from his babbling. Let me apologize in advance to my mom. She doesn't like it when I'm mean, but I just have to ask this question to the viewers. Can the progressive left just get one guy that exudes a little bit of masculinity? Like, for instance, do you think if they switched out Brian Tyler Cohen halfway through the interview for David Pakman or Kyle Kalinske, anyone would notice? Even though they look different, I still think it would be like a 50-50 shot whether or not people would. Before we get back to the video, I just want to mention one thing that never, ever comes up in these abortion conversations. Rarely, if ever, is the act that leads to pregnancy discussed at all. Now, I'm no biologist or expert in human sexuality, but it doesn't seem like if people were so quick to treat sex as something casual, something to be done with anyone at any time, the perceived need for abortions might drop significantly. And I could be wrong, of course. Maybe it really is good for society that we normalize this mindset of sleeping with whoever, whenever, all in the pursuit of selfish, short-lived pleasure. But perhaps, just perhaps, the way we view and approach sex as a culture is contributing to some of the very problems we're debating so fiercely. I think it's worth talking about and considering. Isn't it? Let me know if I'm crazy in the comments. Happy to be wrong on this one.
Able to make this decision for anybody else, regardless of how easy you, Michael Knowles, thinks it is for somebody to put their child up for adoption. The second thing I would say is
it's very easy. There are 36 couples for every one newborn who's put up for adoption. 36 couples who want to adopt in America.
Here's the thing: whether we're talking about abortion or gay marriage, these are people's lives that you're messing with right now, all because you think that your religious beliefs are licensed to dictate how other people live. And what's craziest for me is how you guys shove this idea of limited government down everybody's throats, and yet the people constantly stripping others of their rights are Republicans. If you don't want an abortion, don't get an abortion. If you don't want a gay marriage, don't get gay married. If you don't want to read certain books from libraries, don't read those books from libraries. If you don't want to identify differently, then don't. But why should nobody get these things? With all of these things, if you don't want to commit a murder, don't commit a murder. Hold on, Michael. Let me just finish my point. With all of these things, you lose nothing. All that happens is that other people enjoy equal rights, and yet conservatives' beliefs are apparently so goddamn fragile that the mere existence of people who are different from them is somehow a threat to you.
I don't think any of those platitudes mean much of anything. We just don't want babies to be killed in the womb. You brought up this
But these
point,
aren't,
Brian.
Michael, these aren't babies. And if you wanted to use the 1% example, if you wanted to use the 99% and 1% example, 99% of these abortions happen in the first trimester, and also they're not babies. They are embryos. They are non-viable embryos. And beyond all of that,
Brian, do you know what the word fetus means?
What a woman does with her own body.
Of course,
Brian,
I don't know if we're going to.
There's one very important point to make, even beyond pointing out that the word fetus is just Latin for offspring. The important point to make in responding to what Brian said,
Michael, depending on the gestational stage. These are not all fetuses. They are zygotes, then embryos, then fetuses.
All right.
Embryos.
We're not all going to talk over each other.
And they become babies.
All right.
There's one important point that Brian made that I have to respond to. Which is, Brian, you said that because I'm a man, I do not have any right to have an opinion on abortion.
It's because it's not your body. That's the point I was making.
I would notice, Brian, and I hate to assume your gender, that you are also a man and you are opining on abortion. And more importantly, the Supreme Court that decided Roe v. Wade, how many women were on that court that decided that issue?
Of course,
it's not a matter of your gender. It's a matter of it not being my body. It's a matter of it not being your body. That's the point.
Okay, we're going to end it there because we got to end it somewhere. We've had a contentious.
So logically these days, if a child is born and the father doesn't step up and take care of that child when it's born, I think we all can agree that's a bad thing. But isn't it interesting that he gets no say in whether or not the woman he impregnated has the baby or not? So he's a deadbeat, but she can kill a baby anytime, and that's no problem. So obviously Brian Tyler Cohen is being a white knight douche, just like you'd expect. It's not your body. You know what? You're right. It's a baby. But let's say I accept the argument that this is an issue about women's bodies. I think he says, you don't get to make that decision. But as a human being, do I have the right to point out evil and have an opinion on evil when I see it? Couple things before I wrap up. Isn't his argument flawed from the very beginning, suggesting that people's rights are being stripped away? The Dobbs decision didn't take rights away from anybody. They sent it back to the states. It seems like there might be an amendment about that. I'm going to guess the 10th. So I just think this is fake outrage. And as a matter of fact, I hope it's fake outrage, because I can't believe any biological man, which I'm assuming that Brian Tyler Cohen is, can whine this much. It's really uncomfortable for me. Finally, I seem to recall what I consider a very wise ancient text. I'm not great with names, but if I recall, a quote stuck with me in there. It said something like, what you do for the least among you, you do for Jesus. Now, I interpret the least among us as the vulnerable and needy in our society. So, in my humble opinion, I think unborn babies fall into the vulnerable category very, very nicely. So I feel very good about my position. How about you, Brian? But what do you guys think about this conversation on abortion between Michael Knowles and Brian Tyler Cohen? What do you think about what I had to say? Please feel free to tell me how crazy I am in the comments. I always welcome criticism. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like watching leftists, Democrats spew the same rehearsed talking points that we've heard over and over and over, then click on one of the two videos that just popped up on your screen. Otherwise, as always, I really, really appreciate you watching. The end.